that all-important difference in whatever we do. My guest this morning is Lord Marland, Baron Marland. If you ever Googled him, you will learn that he's Jonathan Peter Marland, a businessman, politician, having served as the UK Prime Minister's Trade Envoy, Minister for Energy and Climate Change and Business, Innovation and Skills. He's also served as the Treasurer of the Conservative Party. And Lord Marland is currently the Chairman of the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council, which has a very interesting acronym, CWIC. And he joins us this morning for a chat about trade and what that holds for Africa and African members of the Commonwealth. Lord Marland, you're welcome to this Asaase Breakfast Show.
Hi, how are you? And very nice of you to have me on. I'd told you about my mother's birthday. She was 93 yesterday.
Awesome.
Still cycles a mile and a half every day. She had a dinner for us on Saturday night. So
wow.
I should have asked you to send greetings to her.
Well, I will do that at the end. You'll have to choose a song. When we're ending, we'll play a very special song for your mother.
I thought the Lionel Richie one was very good too.
Oh, we'll find another one.
But thank you for having me on. It's great to be here in Accra again.
Yeah.
And of course, we saw each other in Rwanda, where we had this great Commonwealth gathering of trade and business. And actually, I reflect, and I think it's amazing, really, that you can have 1,700 business people from across the 56 nations. Actually, it was more than 56 nations. It was 80. We had 25 heads of state. We had the president of FIFA even, World Bank, World Health Organization, and, of course, the now King Charles himself. So we had this phenomenal gathering, and you were there, and I think you were excited by it, and I was very excited by it.
It was an exciting time because one of the critical things that I walked away from was the commitment of the bigger or larger members or the more influential members of the Commonwealth, coming to the table to say, how do we ensure that the wealth is truly common amongst all the members of the Commonwealth? And I think that was a brilliant thing because it simply means that we will see the Commonwealth grow in leaps and bounds, and that growth will affect everyone else.
Yeah, and of course it's where the developing markets are, where resources are, and a great work ethic, actually. And I think the other thing to add to your analysis there is that 60% of the Commonwealth population is under 30. So there's this incredible talent pushing through, vibrant talent, which needs opportunity, but also will provide opportunity.
Yeah, a lot was said at the heads of governments meeting, which was in Kigali over in June, so 7 months ago. What has changed, and what can we expect in terms of the desire to bring more equity to how the wealth in the Commonwealth is shared?
Well, I think the jury's out, largely because every country in the world is recovering from this economic shock. Ghana is very fortunate in that it has its own resources, but if you look at some of our Commonwealth countries, which are utterly dependent on tourism, for example, the Caribbean and small island states, many of the small island states throughout the Commonwealth, the Pacific Islands, places like Sri Lanka, which are very heavily dependent on tourism, that stopped for virtually 2 years. And that ground their economies to a complete standstill. One of the things I was very instrumental in was getting the UK government to lift the ban on travel to them before any other country, and we were successful in it. So that helped their economies develop, but they've still got a huge amount of catch-up, as has every country. The United Kingdom, for example, will have zero growth this year, has got has got inflation into double figures, has got interest rates going up. So every country is suffering from shock. And it'll be interesting to see how long it takes to recover from it. And the way that you recover from these things, of course, is by growth, by prosperity, by creating jobs, by creating business trading activity. And that's why our network and the Commonwealth, with 56 countries, a third of the world's population, is so important. And I think we have a huge responsibility as an organization to help every country to recover from this economic shock, to create trading contact with each other so that it allows them to export, to develop business, and go to wider markets.
You know, as a businessman before a politician, you'd appreciate that in times of great uncertainty, there's also opportunity. As the world looks to recover from the double tragedy of COVID-19 and then the impact of the Ukraine-Russia war, where do you see the smaller nations within the Commonwealth, harnessing whatever opportunity there is for them today to also kickstart the growth of their economy, the rebound?
Well, as you said, when the going gets tough, the tough get going, and there is great opportunity. And I think the Commonwealth countries, I mean, this is a generalization, but largely they're amazing countries to visit. They have a commonality of interest in that we speak English is a primary language. We have shared ideals and share so many things together, whether it be education systems, whether it be rule of law, fundamental legal systems, whether it be just our love of football and other sports like that, and that it brings the family very much closer together. So, but you can. That's old saying: you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And so, what I'm saying to businesses and to governments is, look, you've got to get out there. We'll create the forum where you can meet other people and develop dialogue in terms of trade and activity, but you've actually got to get out and do it. And so that's why Kigali was a great success. That's why the Trade and Industry Forum we had in London at the Mansion House and Guildhall in December was big. That's why the Commonwealth Games, the business forum we had around the Commonwealth Games, was a bringing together of businesses. So we create the framework for them to do it, and we'll have, by the way, another one in Kigali, Rwanda, our chair in office, as you know, for another 18 months. So we'll have another one in Kigali, probably in July, another one at the Guildhall in London, and then there'll probably be a gathering in Dubai even for Commonwealth businesses. Yeah. So the opportunities there, you've got to grab. This is what I say to businesses: you've got to grab the opportunity. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen.
That's right. You said something quite interesting and instructive. That in terms of the 60% of the Commonwealth is in places where there's a young population, there's resources. Quite often, the narrative has been that the smaller nations, so to speak, get the shorter end of the deal. That more of what they end up doing is selling resources in the raw form, and very little value is added. How's that going to change?
Well, I was quite excited. One of our new members is Mars, and one of the things they want to do is exactly what you've said. Not only have the growth of cocoa in country, but also have the production of it and the manufacturing. And that we're working with them closely on, quite closely with them on, and that is the future, is deploying skills into the cradle-to-grave aspects of the products. You're completely right.
Fantastic. Now, let's turn our attention to something I know. I mean, you did serve as Minister for Climate Change and Innovation, among other things. The circular economy has become a big deal. One of the critical conversations was green investment at the heads of governments meeting. Where does Africa sit in all of this? Is there a real opportunity in there, or this is another thing that the rest of the world will have to take the lead, and then Africa tries to catch up and leapfrog, hopefully?
Well, if you look at Kenya, where I shall be going in part of this tour of Africa I'm doing at the moment, they're going very swiftly to a zero carbon economy, and they're using their resources. And Africa's got fantastic resources. I mean, unlike where I live, the sun shines most of the time, so you've got great solar opportunities. That still, you get wind here. You've got the sea coming in. You've got the natural resource. You've got rivers for hydro. You've got great natural resources here to harness green energy and green activities. So, you're in the driving seat as far as changing your economy. Britain, more difficult. We have wind. We don't have enough solar to really create that thing. One of the other things, of course, is in the good housekeeping point of view, is waste to energy. I think this is a hugely important area of development. It's good housekeeping, it's good discipline, and it's easy resource. We all have tons of waste.
In light of the advancement towards a greener Earth, which is something we can't avoid, we've seen the devastation of climate change across the globe. The question tends to arise from the point of view that if we're going to make some real progress, Africa as a continent, for example, will need what was described as deep energy, that we're going to need a lot more energy than we have at the moment, with a very green field of opportunities in the green economy. How do we balance that aspiration with the demand of the level of energy required to create industry, to be able to scale up rapidly, to ensure that that demographic bulge you talked about is fully harnessed? Should we consider straight from where we are now to a more green portfolio, or should we make a stop at nuclear before we get there?
Well, it's all down to investment, isn't it? And you really need governments that are committed to the cause, not only in terms of rules and regulations. So if you take waste to energy, that it becomes against the law to have to produce too much plastic, to use too much plastic, etc., as we're doing in the UK. You also need a framework of pump priming the investment. So you may, in the United Kingdom, when I was minister, for example, we had grants so that if you invested in a hydro station or an offshore wind or an onshore wind facility, you had support for the capital investment, which was through the revenue. And it really needs the government to be determined to support and pump prime the initiative. So when it gets going, the economies of scale come down. It's much easier to invest, and it's like a sort of roller coaster. It just keeps going and going and going. And that's where we've been successful in the United Kingdom. And I would urge all governments to embrace this and get on with it quickly, because as you said earlier, there is a big population increase in Africa. It is going to have to be supported by energy, and luckily you've got a lot of opportunity.
Fantastic stuff. If you just tuned in, it's 31 minutes past 8, and this is the Asaase Breakfast Show. Our guest in the studio discussing the opportunities for deeper trade between members of the Commonwealth is the chairman of the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council, Lord Marland. The African Continental Free Trade area has finally kicked off, and currently there's a guided initiative which is being run across 8 countries to sort of test run the eventual free trade area. Where does the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council see a point of synergy for both the CWIC members of the Commonwealth, and the African continent as a whole?
Well, it's a great question, and of course, the great thing is it's based here in Accra, which is very, very good. I think the second thing is no one thought that this agreement would happen as quickly as it has, which is incredibly impressive and a great credit to the African nations that they've done it. Of course, our organisation only survives on free trade. We are the big promoters of free trade, so we embrace it completely, and we will be working with the African Free Trade Agreement group to help promote it. I mean, we embrace it, clutch it to our bosom with great vigor. It'll be great for Africa. It's exactly what is required, releasing those boundaries of free trade. Free trade has been demonstrated time and time again that it helps countries out of poverty and therefore is hugely beneficial for countries.
Now, the AFCFTA promises to be a game changer, but if you look across the continent of Africa, majority of the businesses that will carry the burden or the aspiration of the AFCFTA are in the micro, small to medium enterprise bracket. Oftentimes when you talk about big things, you think of big business. Where do you see other opportunities for small businesses and micro businesses to truly carry the AFCFTA dream forward?
Well, I think the starting point is that the majority of SMEs, small, medium enterprises in any country, don't export. And largely only export if someone comes and knocks on their door and says, can I buy something from you? So now you've got a framework and an initiative, as you've just described so well, that is very supportive of this endeavour. So as we said earlier, if the horse comes to water and wants to drink, this is the opportunity. And we're there to support them, as is the FTA.
Great stuff. And so a little bird whispered to me that you are very good friends with the King of England. And I think that it gives me an opportunity to get to know a couple of things about him. What sort of man is he?
Well, I always would be very cautious about saying I'm very good friends with the King. But I've had the great privilege of meeting him on many occasions. He's been a huge supporter of our organisation. He now is chair in office of the Commonwealth, which I think is to the great benefit of the Commonwealth. People sort of say, why do we want a king as chair in office of the Commonwealth? Well, I can tell you, I'd rather have a king than a politician, to be honest. He's apolitical and is committed to virtuous causes. We talked earlier about climate change. He was very much in the vanguard of climate change before anyone else was thinking about it, and I think that foresightedness about it, he deeply cares and is a deeply caring and passionate man, actually. He's a very generous host whenever one goes and visits him. He's acquisitive, wants to know, wants to listen. He's got incredible personal touch to him, having met so many people over time. People are struck how much time he spends with them when he meets them, sort of walking down in these events that he goes to. And he's a remarkable man.
One could see, from the lots of glowing tributes that met his ascension to the throne. Now, it is important to have a unifying figure, such as the King of England, to spearhead this drive towards the attainment of a greener earth. Now, how should the business community respond to this sort of bold demonstration of conviction by a leader of his ilk?
Well, we have a moral responsibility as business people to ensure that this place is better than when we left it. And in many ways, the world is a better place than when we left it. We haven't, touch wood, had a world war, even though, there's one or two incidents that might lead to it. But we've had a very stable economy since the 70s, 80s, and technology has developed quickly. We're a much more inclusive society. We're a more tolerant society, and so a lot of good things have happened. But the thing that the bad thing that's happened is that we haven't looked after our Earth in the way that we perhaps should have done with this vast increase in activity and population growth. And so we have a responsibility to be very careful about our actions in terms of how we treat the land and the countries that we live in. And I think most people now are signed up to the fact of that importance of that responsibility and are actively thinking to themselves, how can I do this better? What is my contribution to it? Whether it's, separating, my waste, or whether it's going for a greener type of energy production. So that's really the importance. And with the King, you have a serious advocate in it, and that will be a uniting force for Commonwealth countries.
Absolutely. Now, the companies around, that are, recently, I think just a few days ago, I think Shell had posted some great profits, and everybody who is pro circular economy is saying, well, we can in one breath, be celebrating the windfall and all of that. Where do you see the players like BP and Shell and the big players in the fossil fuel economy repositioning themselves to support the drive towards a greener economy?
Well, in fairness to them, they are delivering on a need. And there have been seismic shocks with the war in Ukraine, and the demand for their product has increased. But the underlying trend of both those countries is that they are improving the quality of the product that they produce. Gas is of the fossil fuels the most eco-friendly. There's been a big concentration on gas. It's and people think you can turn one thing off and start another, and the current British government have made that mistake in thinking we can put a ban on this, particularly with electric cars, without having a plan for how you get there. So they're very much part of the plan. They've got a lot of technology that's non-fossil fuels. Hydrocarbon, for example, is a major initiative for Shell, and we should encourage them on their way. Of course, they've made a lot of profit in the last year or so, and they didn't make as much profit in years before that. So you've got to slightly balance the books, but they're also very big employers.
That's true.
So you need to manage that whole process very carefully. And I would be concerned if I didn't think BP and Shell, as you've used two British firms, but there are, every oil company wasn't moving swiftly towards decarbonising or improving the quality of their carbon as quickly as they can. If you look at cars now, they run, when I was growing up, you were lucky to get 10 to the gallon. Now you're getting 40. So, it is improving. That isn't trying to whitewash them in any sense or form, but, this sort of attitude of they must stop doing this now and do something else isn't going to work. It has to be a gradual but a determined process which they change.
Final bit of conversation. Your other interest in the arts and in sport. You acquired The Cricketer, the celebrated and widely circulated, magazine on the sport. Did you play?
Oh well, I stopped when I was 55. So, which I had my own cricket team, which was great fun with my two sons, and it's a great game, and particularly great game now. I'm amazed by it. Cricketer was a lovely magazine to own. It doesn't make me any money. I didn't buy it to make me any money, but it just helps encourages one's hobbies, if you like, and it's great fun. And the cricketing world is wonderful. Amazing. These big stars have such modest personalities. That's what I find, unlike some of the other sports where they don't.
Yeah, I know which sport you're talking about. So now you get the chance to. I've selected a really interesting Lionel Richie song for your mom, so you can wish her a belated happy birthday, bless her, and then I will play that song to end our conversation.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's so nice to be back in Accra, and I think it's marvellous having a mother of 93 who's still fit and running around and cycling 1.5 miles every day. So and to all mothers of 93 years old, I think this should be dedicated.
Absolutely, and I chose Ballerina Girl.
Fantastic.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Lord Marland, who is the chairman of the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council. And he's been sharing his thoughts on where the opportunities lie for you and I to participate in a more deepened partnership in the space of trade. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Now let's enjoy the music. We'll be right back with more conversations.